welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business from the inside out. And today I am welcoming all the way, or I should say close by, in Melbourne, Norbert Herrmann. Welcome to the show, Norbert.
Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me. So I should have said you're not actually in Melbourne. You're down by the coastway, so closer than, overseas or anything
The
like
other
that.
way, north,
Oh,
past
that's
Bendigo.
right.
Yeah, the other coast.
Exactly where are you again, Norbert?
In the middle of nowhere, to be precise. It's a place called Fernyhurst, which is about 45 minutes northwest of Bendigo.
That's right. Yes, yes, yes. Why did I say Geelong? Gosh, I'm all over it this morning, aren't I? It's Monday morning. I'm onto my second coffee. Hello to all the listeners as well. Welcome today. We've got a action-packed conversation with Norbert this morning. Norbert, you and I have connected a couple of times now and shared our, highs, lows, and all the in-betweens when it comes to being a founder and building, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm keen to, get your thoughts on all of that today. Let's start though with you are the founder and chief product officer of Liively, and that's with a double I. I love that name, by the way. It feels so energetic, and yeah, it's a great name. We'll come back to how you came to Liively. I think I asked you that the other week, but we'll share it with all the listeners. You've spent more than 30 years building technology inside the realities of how people move, gather, buy, wait, and experience the world around them. And as founder and CPO of Liively, which you started back in 2022 through the Adler Accelerator Program, and again, keen to understand how that you go from an accelerator program into then having your own business, you focused on transforming the live venue and hospitality experience where you help stadiums, events, and hospitality operators reduce the friction, improve the flow, and create more connected guest experiences through the mobile commerce and engagement technology. You're also currently doing pilot programs with Asahi that you're getting off the ground, and you're also working internationally with the Oak View Group. So you can share a bit more about that in a second, but kudos to you. Congratulations. Your work is grounded in a simple and often overlooked idea. And this is really interesting too right now, right? It's that the best technology doesn't necessarily force behavior, it moves with it. And so after decades across startups, digital transformation, and large-scale operational environments, your perspective, Norbert, has evolved from trying to control every outcome towards learning how to build through uncertainty, complexity, and real human behavior as it unfolds in real time. When you booked in for the pod and I asked you what's one unique insight or lived experience when it comes to reshaping life, leadership, and or business, you said, my journey as a founder from trying to control everything to learning through the chaos, figuring things out in real time and building something grounded in real problems and real people. I know I said that in your bio. I just wanted to share it because chaos is exactly what it's like as a founder. I'm going to give it to you, Norbert. Tell us tell us a bit about your journey.
Yeah. Well, it's, the I got into the Antler program off the back of leaving a startup that I joined 5 years before, which was a Internet of Things or smart home business. And you would sort of navigated um, it started with, well, when I joined, there were about 15, 17 people and ended up being like this global thing selling into 120 countries worldwide and second only to one of the biggest brands in the world, which was Philips Hue. And their specialization was in color changing light bulbs, which you go, okay, how can you have 120 countries to selling 100, color changing light bulbs? And I think that was part of that initial journey for me, coming from that background of usability and product and understanding human needs to try to go, well, how do you take this from being a novelty into something that actually helps people to understand why they need color changing light in their
Absolutely.
life? So it was quite an interesting journey. And then through that process, they were acquired by another business that was just preceding the pandemic. Pandemic turned everything upside down.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I think, towards the end of 2021, I thought, you know what? I think I've spent enough time with color changing light bulbs to last a lifetime. and was thought, what am I going to do next? A previous colleague of mine had joined Antler, which I thought originally he joined a luggage company. I thought that's a strange step for him, but
I always thought that too, right?
yeah, it turns out it was a startup accelerator, sort of similar to Blackbird and some of those
Yeah,
others. So just on a whim, I applied, and within a fortnight, I was signed up to their January accelerator, really not knowing at that point in time because we were still coming in and out of lockdowns, and uh, we don't. And at that point, I'd already made the transition from living in a city, Melbourne, to moving regionally, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later.
yeah,
But yeah, and then started the program. You met a whole bunch of really wonderful people. The ideas flying left, right, and center. People with different skills, background, age ranges, and the focus areas. And there were so many great ideas that came through that, but only a few met the small criteria, which was a business that could potentially exceed $100 million in revenue by year 5, and
yeah, yeah,
that's sort of one of the foundational aspects of what goes into pre-seed funding.
yeah,
And yeah, so I went into that thinking, well, the likelihood of me getting funding pretty low. However, I'll come out the other side of that. I'll have a better sense of what I want to do and what I'm excited about, and thinking this will be great. Then I got pre-seed funded, and it's like, oh, actually, now I need to form a business and really start this journey. And that's sort of where the what led me to that. But prior, going back in time, I actually originally started to be a graphic designer, but I was always a pretty nerdy kind of guy. I loved my computers and taught myself to program back in the 80s. Yeah, that's even hard to admit. And just had this whole career that was a hybrid of front end visual design, which led into usability, but also understanding the what it takes to build that stuff. So my first job really was at a startup called Sausage Software, and that was being a web designer, and probably one of the first ones in Australia at the time too. So
what a
yeah,
name too, Sausage Software. And
yeah,
tell me, Norbert, it's interesting, and I can now understand why your branding is so on point, from a brand person to a brand person, especially with the graphic designer. You get pre-seed funding through Antler. You don't even have an idea though, or did you? Did you have an idea going into, was Lively already existing in your mind? Had you already started to formalize a concept? How did that come about? Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of people's how they got into that program, like you sort of asked to basically pitch an idea. And because I was doing a lot of home renovation at the time, I'd actually come up with this concept, very, very different concept that was like, because fundamentally, like trying to tile a bathroom is, a time consuming and expensive thing. So I kind of pitched this idea of prefabricated tile panels that could replace traditional wall panels in bathrooms that would be also, able to work in wet environments. And, uh, but I was also like that was just an off the cuff idea I pitched to them that got me into the program. But I was also willing to, you know, walk away from that concept. And I sort of through the program, you have a lot of these workshops where you put alongside a bunch of other potential founders, and they throw ideas on the table. And the idea of delivery to the seat came up, and I walked away from that session going, delivery to the seat in stadiums. It was like, why hasn't that been done? Of course, my consulting hat went on, and I'm just doing this whole. Must surely this has been tried. Why isn't this a thing? Because it seems like such a obvious
Yeah.
and easy to understand problem. And so I went away and just looked to understand why hadn't it happened. And this is, of course, before we had the luxury of chat GTP in our lives to make all that research
God, yeah.
easier too. Um, and realized that, people had tried it, but it had failed for a variety of different reasons. Like a lot of good product idea, or a lot of good ideas full stop. It comes down to the right time, right place, right people. and a lot of those things had not coalesced at that point in time. So, and that's then that evolved into Lively. My original co-founder came up with the name Lively, but obviously, like the normal spelling domain was taken. So we looked at all the other double, triple versions of those letters, and Lively with two eyes was nice. I had a previous a creative director from LifeX who helped us with some initial branding and ideas and working up the initial brand. I think the double I was nice because it sort of looked like a couple of people in a crowd as well.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's
Yeah,
so great how the brand comes to life in terms of, like, so interconnected to the actual product, the idea, and just you talking about the 2 people because when you go to a live sport or you go to a live event or a live like, concert or whatever, you're not generally there on your own. It's like a tribal thing, right, when you're actually out with people. So, yeah, I like that whole idea. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, we could always like if the whole idea too is trying to be the cure for queuing, and so I love the two eye thing because that's normally as long as our queues get because versus the traditional queue. So it's sort of nicely built into the logo type as well as the solution as well as the ideology.
Love it. So tell us a little bit more about Lively then in terms of what you're doing and how much of where you're at in the business like 2022. Sounds like a lot has evolved, changed, transformed.
Yeah,
We were speaking the other day around you start off where you think you're going and then next thing you know it's pivoting or it's evolving or
yeah,
you as the founder, like you've had a co-founder, you're now a founder, like so much changes internally within a business and also externally. And it's quite crazy to think, like I said, where you started. Like I think about it with my own business. I'm like I didn't know I was going to be doing a podcast. Do you know what I mean? And then that's becoming a massive part of my business. And I'm like, "Huh, that wasn't that wasn't there when I first set out to do this."
yeah. It is. It's a fascinating journey. You sort of I don't know. Sometimes you feel like a boat on the ocean. You rock with the waves and you course
Yeah.
correct, and you're where the concept started was really trying to solve a problem for patrons. What I think as the I guess when we moved from like 22 to 23, we did our first proof of concepts. We were fortunate enough to, through actually one of our early stage investors, a woman introduced us to some people in the Middle East. And so we got to do this proof of concept, which, to be honest with you, was the original proof of concept for Lively was built using Google Sheets and a template connected into Slack and Stripe, so we could take payments, get notifications live through Slack, and effectively we built that just by well, we kind of did the first round we did was a bit of a pirate build because we were in this co-working space in South Melbourne, and we just put a whole bunch of QR codes around because they had a cafe upstairs, um, and we were just overwhelmed with orders. And so, of course, we then extended that proof of concept to where it was intended to be, which was the stadium environments. And so we had to get a little bit of back end behind us to support us for what we knew was going to be a big environment. But we found ourselves over in Saudi Arabia, of all places,
Wow.
in May, June 23, with, let's be honest with you, we'd moved beyond blue tack and sticky tape at that point to, to
It's so
so
true though, because you're putting all your own investment in. I mean, you said you had investors, although when you start, like you're throwing so much of your own like money into it, and you're trying to survive, like you're trying to live. Like yeah, you're having to blue tack your personal life, your business life. Like
yeah,
it's not what's the word? It's not
that's
all
not linear.
shiny. Yeah, It's very much that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you don't get pre-seed funding and then get on a yacht. No,
No, that's exactly right.
yeah, it's pre-seed funding, and that's really where it starts. And coming back to your earlier question, what are you actually getting pre-seed funded on? Well, it's a pitch deck that is a believable pitch deck.
Yeah,
It's it's really a something that has had at least enough thought put in and enough proof points to demonstrate that it could be viable. And off the back of that, at that time I think it was circa 190K that you got for pre-seed funding. Then there's a platform service and charge fee that comes out of that, which takes you back closer to, 110K. And then once you actually set up a business, you're under 100K. And so you've got, effectively not a lot to run on, not a lot of runway to work with to essentially, um, fund 2 people's lives and a proof of concept, to get to a point where the idea is you prove product market fit and then get, bridge round funding. What I realized, very early on in that process is that external factors that we talked about a little bit early on. So right off the back of, coming into this off the back of the, pandemic, there was then a whiplash effect post-pandemic where all these big tech companies were letting go of, employees
yeah,
by the thousands. It was, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, I think, all just, like, letting tens of thousands of people go, and right at the time where we're going in with a tech product to seek, um, seed round funding, and of course, the whole market's got, "Well, nope." What was previously, like, in, I think, 2021, I think it was, where Canva was, like, got its billion-dollar unicorn status in
yeah,
the market,
it's incredible.
then all of a sudden, we're now looking down the barrel of, "Oh, well, you need proof. We need to see
Yeah,
this demonstrated and working. We're not gonna fund you just off the back of a good idea anymore." So
made it
that
better.
yeah, that was the first hit, and it's, but yeah, so very, very but we did do is, do a really great product, proof of concept trial in Jeddah, and we're able to, at least demonstrate the product working enough that we were able to secure some, I guess, private investment that carried us through to 2024. Um, and that sort of set the stage for what was the next stage of the business, where it moved away from just looking after the patrons, but also building more of an ecosystem that benefited the vendors and the venues. And so that was one of the learnings out of that proof of concept trial.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talked around before. It's quite often you see a problem and it's so obvious, and yet so many people don't solve it. And so that sounds like it's informed a lot of the way Lively has expanded as well. Tell us a little bit about engagement technology because you focus on mobile commerce and engagement technology. And the reason I'm asking specifically about engagement technology is because you've talked about the pandemic a few times, and it's like that kind of threw us upside down, and yet we're in this next revolution, if you like, where it's like, what was like the pandemic? That was like yesterday, like so many
Yeah.
years ago now, and now we're in this like revolution with AI and everything that's happening, and it's kind of like it's very there's a lot of hype out there at the moment, and there's a lot of conversations that we haven't even hit the peak yet. It has to flatten out at some point. And I keep coming back to, humans, engagement, connection, and obviously that's a big part of what Lively's doing. Can you explain to the listeners a little bit in terms of how is engagement technology different to, just technology in general? Like, y is there a reason you call it engagement technology? And this could be like quite a
Yeah.
basic question I'm asking. I
Yeah.
just I just like the way you call it engagement technology because, it feels two-way to me.
Yeah. Well, engagement technology, there's two sides of that coin. One is the obvious one, which where you're trying to get eyeballs, um, and you're trying to solve problems. The other side of engagement technology is, in the case of stadiums or concerts, people are come to these events. They want to see their team win. They want to hear
Yeah.
their favorite song, and so what we're trying to do, as to a degree, is almost counter engagement, where we're trying to keep them engaged in the event that they've gone to see, by providing them a seamless method for engaging food, alcohol, merchandise, from their seat, and keeping them in the moment, not in the queue.
Love that.
So, yeah, I sort of think of engagement technology as those two sides, right? Well, one, I'm there at that concert, I'm watching, whether it
Yeah.
might be long, or they got to see Metallica in Abu Dhabi last year. Just yeah, pretty cool, by the way. They still, like, kick it out of the ballpark,
Yeah, I can imagine.
but, like that engagement, like, sometimes for some of these things, these are once in a lifetime moments for people,
Uh,
and
yeah.
well, historically, if they want food, drinks, or merchandise, you're like going, "Oh, hey, can we have maybe a third of your hundreds of dollars that you've spent to go see this thing, and put you into a queue to purchase some whatever it is you want, taking you away from the people that you've gone to
Yeah.
see with you."
Sounds like a
Talking
headache.
about, like, yeah,
You're like,
it's so nonsensical in so
no,
many
it is
regards.
nonsensical, and I love how Lively's doing that, because for me, and that's what I love, this, it's that ecosystem, it's that end to end. It's like, rather than going to a concert or a sporting event and the disconnected experience, if you like, in terms of like, like, if I'm at a music concert or if I'm watching the footy, I'm a Collingwood supporter, you know that, and the game is intense, I'll hold on to go to the toilet because I don't want to miss. Or you come as soon as you come back from going to the bathroom. Sorry, listeners, sharing too much probably information here, but whatever. I always go, what did I miss? Like, and so it's exactly what you're talking about. So like the ability not to be able to miss everything, and especially like, with the cost of living and inflation and, interest rates, you want to get bang for your buck, right? When you go to these events, and that's a global thing around the world. Like, the other
Absolutely.
thing, yeah, and the other thing for me is, and I don't know if you've heard this, Flossie, I just don't like queuing. Like, is that like an insight in terms of, of course it is. Like, is it like, do people actually generally hate queuing and lining up? I always say there's no such thing as queuing for me.
No, I mean, somebody said to me, there's most countries in the world hate queuing, potentially with the exception of the British. Now, I have no proof points on that, but it's I fundamentally, what I've seen is that people love the convenience, and I think we've been indoctrinated to that through the pandemic as well. Like, this comes to right time, right place, right people, right? And little subtle changes that occurred during the pandemic, like being able to scan QR codes natively through your phone versus having to download an app to do that, was one of the gear shifts that enabled a lot of these QR code based services to become so much more accessible. But these are all like these trigger points. Why haven't these things succeeded before? Well, if you're in a 100,000 person stadium and everybody's downloading a native app, you're clogging the network traffic. And of course, 4 years ago, you're on, it was what, 3G moving to 4G. Now we're on 4G moving to 5G, and 5G, well, by the end of this decade, we'll be moving to 6G. So the environment's constantly evolving as well, both from a technology perspective, and that obviously enhances the ability to be able to deliver these services into those environments as well.
Mm, mm,
Um,
fascinating.
yeah.
Fascinating. So you've got a couple of, you've got a pilot program with Asahi. Tell us a little bit about that if you can.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what I can tell you is that last year, and this is good advice for any introvert founder out there like myself. The I find whenever I push myself out of my comfort zone and go to these startup events, I always meet somebody new,
Yeah.
and one of the people I met through one of these Stone and Chalk events was the Asahi team who were there about to launch a program with SIP Ventures, funnily named. And they were like, "Oh, we've got a thing that we're about to kick off. When that launches, you should apply." And I thought, "Oh, this is great. We're a shoo in for that." What I didn't realize is that few hundred people, other businesses also applied. So we had to pitch for our spot to get this non-dilutive investment in and to do this thing. But fortunately, we were able to, pitch our concept to the Asahi team and get involved in the pilot program. I think they ended up selecting like three businesses. I don't really know the
Amazing.
other two. Why we're just now going through the process with them of figuring out what is going to be that first venue to launch at.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and so that's going to be really exciting to and ironic, like it's taken what year are we in now? 2026 to actually launch a stadium event in Australia in 2026. 4 years after the business was founded, where we've been able
Yeah.
to do all this stuff overseas.
I know, I know.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask you about that actually. I do wanna switch it up a little bit and, before I start asking about the founder journey and the trials and tribulations that go with being a founder, we touched on it a little bit at the start and obviously connected back to Lively. I'm not again to politics because I don't love talking about politics. However, there is an interesting thing happening in Australia right now with the new budgets that have come through and, I guess the new, well, they've got to be legalized yet. Like in terms of from an entrepreneur and a business owner here in Australia, and just you touching on it's taken 4 years to get to like having an event, like, being positioned in like an Asahi pilot program versus overseas. I guess this does lead us into founder. Do you think that this is also going to limit us in terms of more people becoming entrepreneurs and starting up their own businesses?
yeah. The short answer, yes. I'm not a political person either. However, what I have learnt, particularly over the last 12, 18 months, is that if I had my time over again, I think I would have focused on setting up the business internationally. That it's just Australia's not established as an environment that supports innovation, and I don't see that improving based on what's come out of the most recent budget. I'm
Yeah.
not particularly aligned to any political party. I think
No.
probably like a lot of us, it feels like you're selecting the lesser evil. It's not like these guys are going to change the world. It's more like, oh, I hate these guys less. That's sort of what it feels like when you're voting these days, which is
Yeah.
not a great mindset to walk into a polling booth with. But I mean, what I do know is that um, when I can talk specifically, because this is something I'm going through at the moment, is the R&D process, which is designed to support Australian businesses that are at the stage that I'm at, which is this weird sort of in between space, in between seed and A series,
Yeah.
where you kind of have some traction, but maybe not enough stability in your business to be able to. Uh,
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah, like, it's so heartbreaking, like, because it's so much blood, sweat, and tears that you're putting into this, and it's like it's almost like, how do you keep going as a founder? Like, how do you wake up every day and go, I love that you're saying, "I don't know," like, because there is some days where listeners out there, if you're just starting out and you're like, "I don't know," that's the uncertainty, right? Like, that's for me where you just have to keep going forward, like, someone told me the other day, "Fail forward," and I love that. Yeah, so just keep failing forward, B, and I'm like, "Okay." Yeah, yeah. Wow. Oh, amazing. Yeah. Makes sense, doesn't it? Wow. So disappointing, and it's so un-Australian if you ask me, in terms of just that, here we are, wanting to be innovative, wanting to be an entrepreneur, like, startup culture, like, rather than just like, yeah, it really it's really upsetting to hear that, that these things are happening, and so that's where it's like when I say to you, "What keeps you going?" And you said, "I don't know," because for the younger generations, it's like, what's the point? And so it's, it's people like you, it's people like me. We have to keep going. We have to keep shining a light for the Australian startup ecosystem, if you like, and the entrepreneurs out there that as tough as it gets, if you actually have a real belief and purpose, which is what you ultimately have, because something keeping you going, even though you say, I don't know. Do you agree? Yeah. Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah, agree. Yes, yes. Yeah. Totally relate, like, as a consumer to going to all these events that I love, like, you've hit, like, a human truth, a full insight, right? It's so yeah, yeah, I love it. Okay, I've got a couple of final questions for you because I know it is Monday. You said before actually, there's probably 3 things. You said, you've talked about the pandemic and it's sent us upside down. What are you seeing as the most upside down besides what we were just talking about then in terms of like in business right now as a founder? Like and I think I'll put the AI lens over the top of it, right? Like what are you seeing? Like the pandemic definitely flipped us upside down. Do you think we're in an upside down moment as we speak in terms of what AI, especially from your tech background as well, do you think that or do you think it's a lot of hype? Like, is it gonna plateau like, is it gonna calm down? Like, what do you think? Very good, it's you're in a studio. Yeah, yeah, good, I get it. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 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 I don't know how much thinking's not being thought through with that at the moment yet. I think, yeah, I don't know. Well, time will tell, I guess. Time will, yeah, yeah. So we hope. We definitely hope. Okay, final question for you. You said earlier you're an introvert at heart, and you also moved from, the city, the hustle and bustle, and moved out to regional. You said we'll probably get to that later. As a founder and obviously as, fundraising and, you're pitching constantly and kind of having to be, you're like the lead singer of a concert half the time, right? And there's some days where like, how does the regional and the introvert work for you as a founder? Yeah. Oh, that's wild. Yeah. You sound like you're about to sing the Louis Armstrong song, "What a Wonderful World." I see. So, yeah. Yeah, be present. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm the same, 48. Yeah, I choose chill time versus, like, being out and about. I don't I've had my time. Yeah, I get it, I get it. I love that you've brought up the presence and the grounding because it is so important as a founder, especially when you have those, like I said, the highs, lows, and all the in-betweens. Norbert, thank you so much for your time to come on the show today. It was such a great chat and, maybe at some point we can do a live podcast where you're at an event or a stadium and you can actually take us through how it works. That would be very cool. Like, yeah, as a yeah, it'd be awesome, right? You'd be working, no doubt you're working, and whether you can afford the time, I think it would be a great just to share. Like, I mean, because it is at the end of the day, it is about obvious problems and how you're solving them for consumers. And I see big things for Liively. The name says it all. It's like it's never going to be dull, right? So thank you so much. Never a dull moment. How do we find out more about Liively, and how do we find out more about you? Amazing. Yeah, yeah. All the investors out there. Yeah, there's investors listening to the show, so throwing it out to you also. Norbert, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.